Central Ontario Jobshop.ca. Local jobs that work.
No sleep till.
Peterborough's Talk Sports Radio, Extra 90.5. This is the Regulars. Coming up later on in the show, Paul Rellinger will stop by. We'll pick his brain on some topics. The Lakers, huge win last night. Couldn't believe when I read the box score this morning. They won 28-7 last night over Brampton. We'll get to that coming up. But first, have to welcome in one of our favorites, Mr. Brian Goldfinger.
Goldfinger, he's the man with the Midas touch.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Such a cool
The man himself is in studio. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me back. Really appreciate it.
Now, you're coming in at the perfect time because we know you're a big basketball guy. I got to pick your brain about this, too. You sent me a link yesterday about this guy in Hamilton, big case going on that just was hot off the press. We got to get to that coming up a little bit later, but what do you think if the Warriors win Game 4, sweep the Cavs, and they go 16-0? What do you think about that?
16-0, I'm really disappointed in, it's great. All the credit to the Warriors, but I'm so disappointed in the NBA. Three sources. It's the NBA, Tyronn Lue, and the Toronto Raptors. And I'm going to tell you in no particular order. Number one, Tyronn Lue. I'm disappointed because he decided to go with a run-and-gun offense against the best run-and-gun offense that the NBA has ever seen. So instead of slowing down the pace of the games, he instead opted to go fast, play with more pace, and you're not going to beat the Warriors like that, hence they're down 3-0. The NBA, I'm disappointed because with all their checks and balances, with the collective bargaining agreement, with the salary cap, with bird rights, with luxury tax, you have now a state of affairs whereby a team is going to go 16-0, essentially have 70 wins after 70 wins, and dominate the NBA for years and years and years to come. It makes it really frustrating to watch a product, and I'm a huge NBA fan, and I think NBA fans across the board would agree that these playoffs have been lackluster. They've been boring.
Oh, I agree with you, but this is my opinion going into this series, was that, you could wipe away the first 3 rounds, but if we got a 6 or 7 game NBA final, I was like, you know what? I'm okay with that. If we get the 2 best teams going at it, and if it was competitive, if there was drama, then I'd be okay with it. But seeing Cleveland go down 3-0 leaves me almost dumbfounded. In Game 3, I really thought they were going to win that game, but inexplicably they go 0-11 down the stretch, or Golden State goes 11-0, wins the game. And Kevin Durant goes off, and they find a way to lose.
All was forgiven if the NBA final shaped up like the Clash of Titans it was supposed to be, but it hasn't. And that's really been a shock to me because I think very highly of LeBron James. I really do. And I didn't think he would go out 3-0, potentially 4-0, but he has. And it's left just a huge vacuum or a huge separation whereby you have Golden State versus everybody else. And then Cleveland in the East. It was essentially Cleveland in the East versus everybody else. So for an NBA fan to watch the game, and here's where it segues, dovetails nicely into the Toronto Raptors. We were in the golden age of Toronto Raptor basketball. The Raptors are on the downtick. Boston's on the uptick. Cleveland's always going to be there with LeBron. And regardless of what they do in the offseason, I just don't see the Raptors, A, getting over Cleveland, and then B, getting over Boston, or C, getting by this Warrior juggernaut. I don't know what to do. So we've waited so long in Canada for the Raptors to be competitive, to be a few games away from a final, to win a final. And seeing what's happening in Golden State and Cleveland, the Raptors' future is very, very, very bleak, in my opinion.
Chatting with Brian Goldfinger of Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. We will get to some personal injury law talk coming up, but we know Brian's such a big NBA fan, and I think you're so right about Toronto right now. What do you do as an organization? You can sign them up for 50 wins, but you're not going to beat the Cavs. There's
No.
almost no hope, but they're a top 5, top 6 team in the NBA, but compared to Cleveland and Golden State, there's just a massive gap there.
No. And Boston with the first pick overall in the upcoming draft, who knows what they're going to do with that pick. I see Boston really being on the uptick. My friends had an interesting theory about Kyle Lowry. So Lowry, he's up for free agency in the offseason. What do? He's going to get paid regardless of where he goes. You just can't let Lowry walk away for nothing. So a theory is that Lowry's a Philly guy. Colangelo brought in Lowry. Colangelo is the GM of the Philadelphia 76ers. You go to Philadelphia, you arrange some sort of sign and trade for some assets. So you sign Lowry to the max here in Toronto, and then you go to your buddy Brian Colangelo down the road in Philadelphia. You say, I know you want this guy. What can you give me? I don't know what Colangelo could offer, but it's worth a shot.
I think now you got to see like what Boston's doing here. Like Boston could go out, maybe get a Paul George, maybe get a Jimmy Butler with that first pick.
What about Gordon Hayward?
Maybe get a Gordon Hayward, but are they going to beat LeBron? I still don't know.
It's to a point in the NBA where you have to pray for a slip and fall to segue into personal injury. You got to pray for a slip and fall to LeBron that he hurts his ankle and can't play, but the guy's a robot. He doesn't miss games. You got to pray for a slip and fall to Steph Curry or to Kevin Durant.
Got to pray for a tripping over Brian Goldfinger courtside. That's what you got to pray for.
Courtside, put out my leg conveniently. Or how about throw a water bottle like Sidney Crosby did last night?
Yeah, one of those.
Yeah.
But how do you view LeBron James going forward now? If they get swept, I mean, are you still going to give LeBron a pass, or is this going to be a little bit of an asterisk beside his legacy?
LeBron's numbers, I think, in this playoffs, he's been averaging a triple-double, something ridiculous like that. And I don't think it's on LeBron. LeBron is doing everything he can do, but when you're going against 2 former MVPs and essentially 4 All-Stars on Golden State, there's only so much one guy can do. Kyrie Irving, for the first 2 games of the series, he wasn't playing up to snub. Kevin Love, surprisingly, has played very, very well. But Kevin Love isn't at the same level as the Golden State Stars. So I still hold LeBron at very high regard. I just think he's going against one of the all-time great teams, if not the greatest team of all time in Golden State. And at the end of the day, basketball is a team sport. There's only so much one man can do.
It's interesting if you go back to what you were talking about, the clash of the Titans. Now, do you just look at this series and this series alone, or would you sort of combine maybe even last year where Golden State was supposed to be the team that everybody was supposed to be talking about being the holding the trophy, but obviously Cleveland had all the momentum. So if I take those 2 years and sort of combine them together, I still think you've got a fantastic series. Meanwhile, I'm still not a big fan of waiting 3 weeks for another game to be played. But,
yeah, that's a problem too. NBA's got to work on that.
Yeah. But do you only look at a year by year or season by season, or would you sort of combine the two?
Well, for this season, I wouldn't combine the two, just because the playoffs have been so lackluster in the NBA. Charles Barkley, he was speaking like Wayne Gretzky, saying, I wish I played hockey because these NBA finals have been awful. And he was right. And NBA, they've been known for doling, like, they had an old slogan, like, the NBA is excitement, something like that.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I can't
too.
remember that,
yeah.
but it has just been so non-exciting. So that's why I can't forgive the NBA for having such a bad playoff and then comparing the 2 finals, because the finals haven't lived up to any billing. And back to your point about all is forgiven if the finals were a real clash of the Titans, and it wasn't. So all is not forgiven, and it just saddens me so much being a Toronto Raptor fan. And I know that there are a few Raptor fans out there, knowing that they're just not going to be able to get over the hump, and who knows what they're going to do in free agency, and then we're going to have to wait another 20 years to maybe make it to another Eastern Conference Finals. That is depressing.
Well, it's like I mentioned to Collins, I'm not a diehard basketball fan by any stretch of the imagination. I'll start to peek in around the playoffs, near the end of the season. Just wait to see what the Raptors are going to do, and they'll watch the Raptors in the playoffs. But again, you're looking for, and last year had a lot of intrigue for me because, again, you had Cleveland that, I really didn't like because obviously they showboated against the Raptors a bit, even more so this year. And then you had Golden State, which was undefeated. It's almost like watching the Patriots go through the entire season and end up in the Super Bowl, right? And then, so that sort of led me to some intrigue. But as a sort of a closet basketball fan, just sort of peeking from the outside, from the cheap seats, is there anything about this series at all that should be intriguing me?
I have to think about that. Well, you know what? It's LeBron James' legacy, I think, because LeBron wants to go down as the greatest player of all time. And to your question, what does this do to LeBron? I think in his mind, does it take him down a notch? In my mind as a fan, no. But in others, if he goes out 4-0, the answer might be yes.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm a big LeBron fan, even though I grew up idolizing Michael Jordan, and I still have a tough time putting LeBron over Michael, but I've watched LeBron the last couple of years in 7 straight finals. I'm okay if he gets swept in this series, because I just know you're watching a team right now that put up 73 wins last year, got Durant, put up 70 this year, and is one of the greatest teams in history. So I'll give him a pass. I was just hoping to have a 7-game final, and I'm not going to get that now.
Here's my hot take. And I have no evidence to back this up, none whatsoever, on LeBron and other athletes, perhaps in the NBA and in tennis, blood doping. So it goes to LeBron's his endurance, and he doesn't get injured.
Yeah.
I believe, based on no evidence and no facts whatsoever, that these guys go somewhere in Europe and they get blood transfusions. They do something to their blood such that the cells reproduce themselves at a greater rate, increase recovery. That's what they do in the off season. And I believe that's why a number of these guys aren't getting as injured as much as, say, in the past. That, and of course, better training. But I wouldn't be surprised if that came out in the next 5 years or so.
You know, if I see on LeBron's Instagram that he's over in Berlin this summer,
right,
I'm going to start thinking along those lines, because Brian Goldfinger tipped me off to it. So, Brian, I got to ask you a question about this. This is the time of year. I bet you a lot of cycling accidents happen in terms of personal injury law. I was in Toronto over the weekend and nearly saw an accident involving a cyclist myself. I'm curious, do you see a lot of that in your field, in your practice?
Well, right now, when the weather gets nicer, more people are out walking, out on their motorcycles, biking. Frankly, not many people know the rules of the roads and how to share the roads safely, particularly in environments or cities that are more dense. So even downtown here in Peterborough, you know, there's some downtown traffic. There is. There's a lot of people walking around, people not paying attention to where they're going. People might be in a bit of a hurry to get to their cottage or get to Costco or something like that. And they're just not paying attention, and accidents do happen. And we see that a lot more, I guess, in the summertime with more people out, as opposed to the wintertime when it's brutally cold and nobody wants to be out walking.
That's interesting to say, because, again, now we're getting into, and Colin and I were talking about a few minutes ago, is end of school time. And so there's going to be a lot more people out on the sidewalks, a lot more people out on the streets playing, maybe some road hockey. Obviously, this is where we need to be mindful of watching out for the kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting that you say watching out for the kids, because we've handled a number of cases where, unfortunately, we have to sue the parent for lack of supervision. So you have a 4-year-old, or a 5-year-old, they're out playing road hockey, or they're running after their ball, and they run across the street and they don't look where they're going. They don't look both ways. And mom and dad, instead of watching their child, perhaps they're inside, perhaps they're on their cell phone. And we sue the motorist certainly for hitting the child, but in addition to suing the motorist, unfortunately or regrettably, we also have to sue the parent for lack of supervision. Now, people, they think that the money comes out of the parent's pocket. That's not the case. The money would come out of the insurance company's pocket, and if the child is catastrophically injured, whereby the damages are going to exceed one defendant's policy limits, it's advantageous to have more pockets to pick from. So everyone says, oh, that sounds like a nasty, nasty thing to do. The reality is you're just doing the best for your client and for the family as a whole, because the family, the mom and dad aren't paying their kid out of their own pocket. They'll be getting that recovery from an insurance company that's aboard. So that's kind of how those things work. Everyone has this misconception. If I sue you, if I sue Jordan, if I sue Colin, if I sue whomever, that the money comes directly out of their own pocket when it comes to personal injury claims. That is completely false.
You mentioned the phones, and that's going to be a big one coming up in the next little while, because obviously, and we see it right now. I actually saw a YouTube video this morning of a lady on their phone texting away and not paying attention and end up falling in a hole in the middle of a sidewalk that construction workers were working on. That's a little bit of more of a, that's obviously out there. But on the same side, I'm sure there are a number of instances of people, beautiful day outside, they're going for a walk, maybe at lunchtime, and they've got the phone out and they're texting.
Well, quick tidbit, distracted driving, so looking at your cell phone and driving, or distracted walking for that matter, is higher rates of incidents nowadays in the past 5 years over drunk driving, impaired driving.
I saw another incident on Facebook this morning as well of somebody also going after drivers because, bicyclist safety. But on the same side, they're saying, but cyclists, don't forget, there are big red signs that are in there. They're out there for you too. That's not just for the drivers. And I think that's one thing, even with the police that we talk about on a regular basis, is that road safety starts with everybody, pedestrian, cyclist. If you're out there on your bike or on your moped, and I know there's not many laws surround those mopeds, but on the same side, if you come to a stop sign, you got to stop.
You're hired.
The Ram should work for you, Brian, and he's breaking it down.
Oh, you should see me in a courtroom.
So, Brian, you sent me this link last night, and I had a chance to gloss over it a little bit this morning. So break this down for me. What happened to this lawyer in Hamilton? There's something to the tune of $1.5 million that went missing?
Right. So when a personal injury case is settled, people think an insurance company walks up to the lawyer or walks up to the client with a giant suitcase of money. That's not the case.
Doesn't go down like that.
Doesn't go down like that.
Sounds great, though. Where do I sign up?
There are no giant suitcases of cash. So if you're at a mediation or you're there in court, they just and they say congratulations, you win. Nobody's handing you a giant suitcase of cash. The money goes by way of checks, certified check or otherwise, to the lawyer's trust account. A trust account is a special account. It's a magical account. The lawyer is not supposed to touch the trust account. Money held in trust is money for the client and is supposed to be dispersed at the client's discretion. So when there's an award of, say, $100,000 that belongs to the client, it sits in the lawyer's trust account until it clears, and then the lawyer disperses it to the client. And then part of that $100,000, if the lawyer had any fees tacked on that, the lawyer may take those fees, provided, of course, the client agrees. Okay. In this case that I sent you from yesterday about the lawyer in Hamilton, there were millions of dollars sitting in trust. And of the millions of dollars sitting in trust for clients, 1.5 million are missing, are gone. We don't know what happened to those monies. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, that is a case. That's is a case right there.
Right. And that's why the Law Society is looking into it, because that's wrong.
There's so many different... The lines just seems to be very tight for your line of business on, making sure all your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, because if you swing any which way as a lawyer, there's a lot of repercussions, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, we're a regulated profession, so... If the Law Society asks us to jump, we have to say how high, and we have to serve the public, and we have to keep the public's confidence. And the stories like the one out of Hamilton with the $1.5 million missing, it's bad for all lawyers because it makes us all look bad, and nobody likes seeing that.
Brian, we appreciate you stopping by. Only man that can break down the NBA and personal injury law quite like that. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you for having me. Anytime.
Coming up next, we'll get to our lax report. The Peterborough Lakers won big time last night, winning 28-7 over Brampton. We'll break that down. It's the Regulars on Talk Sports Radio, Extra 90.5.